Hello, and thank you for watching my on-demand presentation for the Rutgers Online Learning Conference. My name is Tara Doherty, and I will be presenting on Universal Design for Learning, Strategies for All Learners. As an introduction to me, my name is Tara Doherty. As I said, I'm a pediatric emergency nurse with 17 years of nursing experience, and I received my master's degree in nursing education from Drexel University's College of Nursing and Health Professions. In my time there, I served as a teaching assistant for 2 graduate-level online nursing education courses. And within these courses, I incorporated the Universal Design for Learning principles during course development, curriculum design, and active teaching in the online learning environment. So what is the Universal Design for Learning? The Universal Design for Learning, or UDL, is an evidence-based framework developed by CAST that helps educators design learning environments that are accessible, inclusive, and challenging for all learners. The primary goal is to encourage learner agency, enabling students to actively engage and making decisions that support their learning goals. UDL focuses on altering the design of the environment itself, rather than viewing any issues as a deficit within the learner. By intentionally designing environments to minimize barriers, all learners have the opportunity to participate in rigorous and meaningful learning. The guidelines of UDL are evidence-based with consistent redesign based on practitioner feedback, and the most updated version, Guidelines 3.0, was developed as a way to address significant barriers stemming from biases and systems of exclusion for both learners with and without disabilities. These guidelines are broken down into 3 areas: engagement, representation, and action and expression. These areas are further broken down into 3 other areas: access, support, and executive function. This graphic from CAST displays the guidelines for UDL. Engagement, which is in the green column, is considered the why of learning. It centers on understanding and addressing the underlying factors that drive students' motivation to learn, and recognizing that this will be different for each learner. This component of the framework focuses on cultivating intrinsic motivation by aligning with learners' interests, passions, and personal goals. As educators, we can encourage this by offering students choices, linking learning to real-world scenarios, and ensuring balance between challenge and support to help students connect personally with the material. The ultimate goal is to motivate students to stay engaged and committed to their learning process. With engagement, we want to design options for welcoming interests and identities. This can include optimizing choice and autonomy, addressing biases, and nurturing joy and play in the educational arena. We want to design options for sustaining effort and persistence, which can include fostering collaboration, collective learning, offering action-oriented feedback, and fostering community. And for the executive function of our learners, we want to design options for emotional capacity. This can include promoting collective and individual reflection and cultivating empathetic practices. Representation, in the purple column, is considered the what of learning. It centers on providing learners with multiple ways to access and understand the content. Learners with sensory disabilities, learning disabilities, and those representing diverse cultures or languages will all approach and understand content differently. This component of the framework emphasizes presenting information in various formats to ensure that all approaches can be honored and valued, as well as ensuring representation in the content itself. There is not one means of representation that's optimal for all learners, so it's essential for us as educators to provide our learners with multiple options. Within representation, we want to design options for perception. This can include supporting opportunities to customize the display of information and representing a diversity of perspectives and identity in authentic ways. We want to design options for language and symbols. This could include clarifying vocabulary and symbols, addressing biases in the use of language and symbols, and illustrating through multiple media. For the executive function of our learners, we want to design options for building knowledge. This can include connecting prior knowledge to new learning, highlighting and exploring patterns, critical thinking, and relationships, as well as maximizing transfer of knowledge. Action and expression, in the blue column, are considered the how of learning. It centers on providing learners with multiple ways to demonstrate what they know and express their understanding of the content. This component of the framework emphasizes that learners have different strengths and preferences on how to engage with tasks. This could be through writing, speaking, and drawing, or other forms of expression. By offering our learners various tools, resources, and options for demonstrating learning, we can ensure that all learners have the opportunity to showcase their knowledge in ways that align with their own individual preferences and abilities. For action and expression, we want to design options for interaction. This can include varying and honoring methods for response and optimizing access to accessible materials and assistive technologies. We also want to design options for expression and communication. This can include using multiple media for communication and multiple tools for construction, composition, creativity. For our learners' executive function, we want to design options for strategy development. This can include setting meaningful goals or learning objectives, anticipating and planning for challenges, and enhancing our own capacity for monitoring progress. So how can UDL improve education? Variability in learning is the norm, not the exception. Therefore, UDL can improve education by making learning environments more accessible, inclusive, and engaging for all learners. As educators, we can ensure our content is presented in diverse ways to meet our learners' varied needs and preferences. And this approach can remove systemic barriers to learning, allowing students to access material and actively participate in the learning process, regardless of their background or abilities. Additionally, this framework promotes learner agency, encouraging learners to take ownership over their learning. The learning environment can be designed in a way that's more supportive of learner success, and this creates a more flexible and personalized learning experience. This in turn empowers students, increases intrinsic motivation, and can improve educational outcomes. As educators, we also have legal and ethical responsibilities to be compliant with the Americans with Disabilities Act, which is in place to protect the rights of people with disabilities. The UDL framework can help educators align their learning environments to be more compliant with the ADA. Now, how could UDL improve online education specifically? With an increase in online higher education programs, it's important that educators adapt and optimize how we deliver education to ensure the best learning outcomes for all of our learners. Coming in Rose 2021 describe how UDL is well aligned to online education as simple initiatives such as accessible documents, videos providing learners with instructions on how to navigate the online course, and video captions and transcripts make course materials accessible to all learners. For online learning specifically, there are web content accessibility guidelines that can help us as educators make our web content more accessible to people with disabilities. Their four guiding principles are to make information perceivable, operable, understandable, and robust for its consumers. Their website is linked here and is also in the references page for you to examine more thoroughly. And again, with online education, we need to ensure we're aligning with ADA compliance standards. Using the UDL principle of multiple means of engagement and offering our course materials with a combination of text, audio, and video formats, video recordings of lectures with captions, and audio summaries of key points can all help improve our ADA compliance. Screen readers, in conjunction with providing alternative text for infographics, charts, and other images, are vital for learners with visual impairments. I now have 3 examples for online education and how we can apply UDL principles to them. First, accessibility. We could do actually an entire presentation on making online course documents accessible alone, and indeed my mentor has done so. Still, I'm going to highlight just a few key ways in which you can improve your course documents accessibility, and have also again linked the Web Content Accessibility Guidelines from the Web Accessibility Initiative here. For our documents, using a sans serif font helps with clear readability. You can see in my presentation, I'm using Arial. When creating documents, do not highlight words, as it may be difficult for those with a visual deficiency to be able to see the word that is highlighted beneath. Underlining words should be reserved only for hyperlinks. If a visually impaired student is using a screen reader, it can confuse them, as they will assume anything underlined is a hyperlink, and it can cause confusion for both the technology and the learner, thinking that perhaps links are broken or the page is not working as it should. Bold words to draw attention to them rather than using color, as there are many types of color deficiencies, and it's more common than one thinks. Bolding text is sufficient to draw attention to certain words or phrases, and I could even see here in my own slides where my titles, such as accessibility here, are in red, when perhaps I should have left it black and just kept it as bold. Also, speaking of color, the contrast in your presentation, such as PowerPoints, is important so that learners can see the text on the presentation. Should be dark writing on light backgrounds or light writing on dark backgrounds. I have a link here to a contrast checker that you can use to make sure that your presentations are enough of a contrast to make it more accessible for your students. Any image used should have an alternative text. Don't mark them as decorative. For example, this image here, instead of just saying decorative or saying that it's a picture of a dog, you would endeavor to be as detailed as possible. I've made the alt text for this photo in my presentation a black and white dog wearing a black coat on a leash, standing on a gray rock with a background of a blue sky and trees with no leaves. Therefore, any learner would be able to enjoy the photo being shared. Another way we can incorporate UDL principles, a strategy is using course choice boards when allowing your learners to submit assignments. This image on the screen here is of a choice board graphic that I developed in my time as a teaching assistant, and it offers for discussion boards the learners 3 ways to submit their discussion board response, either first with a text discussion, secondly with a video discussion format, or 3, allowing them to be creative and submit a discussion board with a technology tool of their choice. I don't want to limit the learners to just what I know is available for content. If they have something more creative or exciting or that they want to do, I can learn as well as they can. As a learner myself, I found that having options to submit helped me be more creative and engage with the content in the way that I preferred. And as a teaching assistant, honestly, it helped me from feeling bored by reading 10, 15 text discussion board posts. This ability to choose one's own method of submission also helps your learner's personality shine through. Using a video format for course introductions and weekly course announcements also helps with that connectedness piece that is so vital in online education. If they can see you and hear you, they will feel more connected to the content that you're providing. As a side note, you can see in this choice board that I included a graphic of a woman of color. This is part of the UDL principle of representation, specifically designing options for perception. Our learners need to perceive themselves and their perspectives of themselves and others in the educational materials and media used in our learning environments. This will help our diverse learners feel validity in their perspective, as well as expose all learners to other perspectives. The third example I have as a way to include multiple UDL principles to engage your learners is to design a learning activity using gamification. There are several sites and ways that you can create interactive activities, such as Kahoot, Classcraft, ThingLink Scenario Builders, Google Slides, and Pear Desk. Depending on what you're teaching, your game would be tailored to your content area. But as a nursing educator, my example of this would be a nursing emergency response challenge. I could create varied scenarios, as you can see here on this screen, for my learners that each present a different patient case, and learners must assess the patient, choose the correct interventions, and manage the situation effectively. As learners complete these challenges, which could include matching games, multiple choice questions, branching scenarios, or game show format, they can earn points, unlock badges, and move on to then more complex scenarios. These gamified learning activities incorporate UDL principles in several ways. For engagement and motivation, learners can earn points or badges for completing tasks or demonstrating knowledge, which can increase their intrinsic motivation and participation. As far as multiple means of representation, the sky's really the limit here. Information can be presented in a variety of formats, be it text, video, infographics, charts, visual simulations, which ensure accessibility for all. There's also flexible action and expression. Learners can demonstrate their understanding through different means, such as interactive quizzes, group work, interactive simulations, all which offer varied ways to demonstrate mastery of a topic. A final example I'm going to show you is that of an online course that I developed. I apologize for the not fitting in the screen very well. But using Google Classrooms, I was able to develop an online course teaching emergency nurses mass casualty incident response. And as you can see in Module 3 here on mass casualty triage, there are multiple forms of learning opportunities for the learners. There's a video that they can watch and listen to, along with a transcript that they can read about SALT, a variation of mass casualty triage. There is also a lecture presentation, which was created by me, that the learner can listen to and look at. I also used ThingLink to create disaster triage tags, which they could click and see the different areas, which would expand on information. Fortunately, the access is denied at the moment. And then also I posted an algorithm for mass casualty triage. So you see there are very different ways that I'm expressing the content, and so that the learners, if maybe they don't want to listen to a video, can look at the algorithm and understand by my explanation there. There's also a game as far as my gamified learning activity. You can see the mass casualty matchup. This is just a short example of it for you, but I had them categorize each patient based on the algorithm that they learned through either the lecture presentation, the video, or the algorithm. And so they would connect. It doesn't work really with the size here. They would connect the patient with the category that they were in. Unfortunately, due to my display, it's a little difficult to manage. And then that would show them whether they were correct or not and why, once they have entered all of the connected, did the matching game for all of them. I also, within this Google Classroom, had a post test, which is an interactive quizzing way for the learners to demonstrate their knowledge, that had some fun graphics for them, and then also had the explanations of why their answers were correct or incorrect, and ways that they could read further out into the information. So once they connected the all of the answers and got all of the answers correct, they would be able to demonstrate their mastery of the learning content. And as I go through this, apologize, then you can see all of the information that they would learn. And if they got an answer incorrect, you would also see, you would see the reason why. But the answer, when they're correct, they would have the rationale behind it. So then it was an interactive way of them demonstrating their mastery of the subject. Now, to wrap things up, the Universal Design for Learning is a great way to make online education more inclusive and accessible for everyone. By offering different ways to present information, let learners show what they know, and keep them engaged, UDL helps meet each learner's unique needs. As online learning grows and progresses, using the UDL can help us boost student success, create a more inclusive environment, and give all learners equal opportunities. Moving forward, UDL will be the key to making online education more flexible, supportive, and beneficial, not just for students, but for us as educators. I have my contact here if anyone wants to speak more about UDL, specifically strategies to include with the online learning environment, or any other questions you have. My email is here. And I'd also like to take this time to thank and acknowledge Dr. Joanne Sarembis for her guidance and support. I also have a list of references here that were used throughout the presentation and that can help increase your knowledge on Universal Design for Learning. Thank you so much for watching my presentation. Please reach out if you have any questions.